The cry in the ice wind. The wind howled like a hungry beast across the frozen surface of Kairos 7. Snow blew in thick sheets, turning the landscape into a sea of white. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Not in this cold. Not for long. But a sound broke. The silence. Not the wind. Not the groan of old metal from broken mining machines. It was a cry. Soft. Weak. Full of pain. Rylan Flint, a human supply pilot, had just crash-landed his ship. He was bruised, cold, and trying to fix a busted transmitter. Sparks flew from broken wires as he cursed under his breath. Then he heard it again. A cry. He paused, holding his breath. It came again. Faint, but real. "No way," he muttered. "There's no one out there." Still his legs moved. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was something deeper. He grabbed his thermal jacket, pulled a scarf over his mouth, and stepped into the storm. The snow nearly blinded him. The wind cut through his gloves. His boots crunched over thick ice as he moved toward the sound. The cry grew louder. Closer. He passed a half-buried shelter, an old mining outpost. The walls were cracked, windows smashed. Just as he was about to move on, he saw a shape in the doorway. Small. Shaking. A child? No. Not human. Her skin was pale violet, almost blue. Long white. Hair stuck to her face, wet with tears. Her eyes, large and silver, watched him with fear. She wore a thin, torn cloak, barely enough to survive minutes in this cold. She was curled up, hugging her knees, shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Her bare feet were turning blue. "What the hell?" Rylan whispered. She flinched as he stepped, closer, trying to press herself deeper into the corner of the doorway. Hey. "Easy," he said softly, kneeling down. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but she saw something in his eyes. His hands were open. No weapons. No anger. Slowly, he unzipped his jacket and wrapped it around her. She didn't fight. She was too cold. Too tired. He picked her up carefully. She was light as a feather. Her small hands clung weakly to his shirt. As he carried her back through the storm, he could feel how cold she was. Colder than anything should be and still live. Her breathing was shallow. Her face pressed into his chest. Inside the ship, he laid her near the heater vent and wrapped her in extra blankets. He boiled water from ice and poured it into a small bottle, placing it in her hands. She looked at it like she didn't know what it was. "Drink," Rylan said, miming the motion. She hesitated, then sipped. The warmth made her eyes flutter. She leaned against the wall, still watching him. "Where did you come from?" he asked, half to himself. No answer, of course. He searched the logs. No records of alien children on Kairos 7. No crash signals. Nothing. "You're not supposed to be here," he said. She stared at him, silent. As hours passed, she didn't speak, but she did cry anymore either. She stayed close to the heater, holding the warm bottle like it was life itself. Then something strange happened. As Rylan reached to check her temperature, his hand brushed her chest by accident, just above her heart. A soft glow appeared, a symbol, faint and pulsing like a heartbeat. 3 small rings overlapping in a pattern he'd never seen before. He pulled his hand back, eyes wide. The girl stared at him with new awareness. Like she felt it too. "What is that?" he whispered. The glow faded slowly, leaving only silence between them. He sat back, confused and tense. Whatever this child was, she wasn't just lost. And now, something connected them. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside that little broken ship, something new had started. A bond. A mystery. A choice. And Rylan, a simple pilot, had just taken the first step into a story far greater than he could imagine. The girl with the mark, the ice storm outside, didn't let up for 2 whole days. Rylan's ship was still dead. The emergency power kept the heater and a few lights running, but the main systems were fried. No signal. No help. No chance of flying out. Yet. But the biggest mystery wasn't the broken ship. It was the girl. She didn't speak. She didn't cry anymore either. She just sat near the heater, silent, watching. Her big silver eyes never left Rylan for long. Not out of fear now, but something else. Curiosity. Or maybe trust. Every few hours, Rylan gave her sips of warm water and small bites of ration bars. She never ate much, never asked for more. She only nodded slowly, like she was learning. But that mark, that strange glowing mark on her chest, still haunted his thoughts. He hadn't seen it glow again since the first time. It only happened when he touched her, and even then, it felt alive, like it was watching him too. On the second night, while the wind screamed outside like lost ghosts, Rylan decided to try something. He sat across from her, pulled out his datapad, and showed her a simple image of the planet. Then he pointed to the storm outside and said, "Kiros." She looked. Her brows pulled together in confusion. Then she shook her head slowly. "Not Kiros?" he asked. She raised one tiny hand, touched the datapad screen, and drew something in the fog on its surface. It wasn't a word. It was a symbol. 3 curved lines, woven like threads, the same as the glowing mark on her chest. "You come from that?" Rylan asked, pointing. She didn't nod, didn't speak, but her eyes filled with something heavy, like sadness and memory. Then she reached forward, took his hand and gently placed it on her chest, right where the mark was. The moment his palm touched her skin, the symbol glowed again. But this time, something else happened. Images flashed through Rylan's mind, too fast, too sharp. He saw a giant tower made of bluestone, alien stars above it. Tall figures with golden armor kneeling to a woman who held a child, this child in her arms. Then fire, screams. A silver ship fleeing into darkness. He jerked his hand back, heart racing. "What the hell was that?" he gasped. The girl looked down, suddenly tired. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. He stared at her, stunned. She wasn't just any child. She had memories buried inside her. Not her own. Someone else's. Someone powerful. Someone in danger. And somehow, she had shown them to him. "What are you?" he whispered. But deep inside, part of him already knew the answer. She was royalty. Or worse, a target. He barely slept that night. The heater hummed softly, and the girl curled up beside it with his jacket over her small frame. Rylan kept watch, sitting with a piece of metal pipe in his hands, just in case anything came. In the early morning, the storm began to fade. Rays of pale blue light cut through the frosted windows, and for the first time in days, the wind didn't howl. He checked the outside. His ship's transmitter was still down, but the weather was clear enough to try and boost a signal manually. He needed to send a distress call before a sound stopped him. Not a cry, not wind, a low thumping, heavy, rhythmic, distant, but moving closer. He turned toward the sound, heart pounding. The girl sat up, stiff. Her eyes were wide. "Afraid? You know that sound?" Rylan asked softly. She nodded. "Once." Then she pointed to the door. "Run." Rylan grabbed his coat, threw a blanket around the girl, and lifted her in his arms again. Outside, the snow was thick, but the wind was gone. In the distance, beyond a rise of ice, he saw it. A shape. Tall. Wide. Walking on 2 legs. Covered in thick armor and metal. Not human. Not machine either. It was searching, and it was coming their way. "Nope, we're not staying here," Rylan whispered, gripping the girl tighter. He ran. His boots sank into the snow with every step. His breath came out in clouds. The girl clung to him, not crying, just watching with those glowing eyes. He didn't know where to go. Just away. Then she pointed again. Not behind, Not ahead. Below, a frozen hatch half buried in the snow. Rylan knelt and pulled. It didn't budge. The thumping behind him grew louder. The metal shimmered with blue light. The girl reached out her hand and placed it on the hatch. The mark on her chest glowed. The hatch clicked open. Rylan yanked it up, and they dropped into darkness just as the creature crested the hill. The metal doors sealed behind them. Darkness. Silence. Then, dim blue lights blinked on around them. Not human lights. Older. Alien, Rylan looked around. Ancient walls. Long halls. A secret place beneath the ice. And beside him, the girl just whispered one word in a voice he didn't know she had. Home. The beast in the storm for a long time, there was only darkness. Rylan and the alien child stood inside the cold, hidden chamber beneath the snow-covered surface of Kairos 7. The walls pulsed faintly with soft blue light, alive with strange patterns and markings. The air was still. Too still. Rylan's breath echoed. The girl stayed close to his leg, her small fingers clinging to his coat. Above them, the storm had faded, but something else now moved across the land. Something worse. He looked, up at the sealed hatch they had come through. Whatever had been chasing them. It had stopped, not gone. Waiting, watching. He turned back to the girl. What is this place? She didn't answer, but her eyes scanned the walls. She moved carefully, like she remembered this place. But not fully. Like pieces of a dream were floating back into her mind. Rylan followed her deeper. As they walked, old lights flickered on ahead of them, triggered by her presence. Ancient metal doors creaked open, revealing hallways untouched by time. Strange symbols carved into the stone glowed softly when she passed. This is not just a bunker, Rylan whispered. It's a vault. A memory vault? A sanctuary? He wasn't sure. But one thing was clear, she was meant to find it. They entered a circular room. At the center stood a tall structure, almost like a crystal tower glowing softly from inside. The girl stepped forward and placed her hand on it. Instantly, the room filled with light and sound. Floating images burst to life around them. They showed a world not made of ice but of beauty. Twin suns, floating gardens, tall cities glowing with life. Aliens of her kind laughed, danced, built together. Then, war. Ships falling from the sky. Towers burning. Armored beasts marching through. Fire. Screams. One final image showed a woman, tall, strong, dressed in silver armor. She looked like the child. The same eyes, the same mark. She held the child in her arms and whispered something before placing her into a pod. And then darkness. The vision faded. Rylan stood frozen, unable to speak. That was your mother, he finally said. The girl looked up at him, her face quiet and full of something too deep for words. Before either of them could move, the ground above them trembled. Thud, thud, thud. The creature was back. But it wasn't alone. Rylan moved quickly, grabbing the girl's hand and pulling her back from the center of the room. Above them, the ceiling cracked slightly. Frost falling, in flakes. And then, silence. No more footsteps. Just breathing. Deep. Slow. Almost like something sniffing the air. Rylan held the girl tight, one hand on the small blaster at his side. It was old. Low power. One shot. Useless against something this big. But then the girl moved forward. No, wait. Rylan whispered harshly. She didn't stop. She walked to the center of the room again. She raised her arms and looked up. The mark on her chest blazed to life. And that's when Rylan saw it, through the cracks in the ceiling. Eyes. But not cruel. Not hungry, sad. They stared down at the girl, glowing with golden light. A low sound echoed through the chamber. Not a roar, groan, deep and ancient, like grief. Then the roof shattered. A massive figure dropped into the chamber, shaking the floor. Rylan stepped in front of the girl, blaster raised, heart pounding like thunder. But the creature didn't move to attack. It was a beast. Yes, tall, wide, covered in plated armor that looked part of its body. Horns curled from its head, but its arms were outstretched. Slowly it knelt, right before the child. Rylan's hand shook. The girl stepped past him and reached forward. She touched the beast's massive claw. The mark on her chest pulsed again. And then, the beast lowered its head. It wasn't here to harm her. It was here to protect her. Rylan lowered the weapon, his voice barely a whisper. "You knew this thing?" The girl nodded slowly. It was one of her mother's guardians. A voice spoke. Rylan spun around. Another figure had entered the chamber. Not the beast. Not human. A woman, tall and dressed in black. Her skin shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes glowed white. "You shouldn't be here, human," she said coldly. "You've touched something sacred." Rylan stepped between her and the girl. She was alone. She was freezing. "I didn't have a choice." "You did," the woman said. "And you chose to bind yourself to the heir of a fallen empire." Rylan looked back at the girl who was now sitting beside the beast, touching its fur gently. "What happens now?" he asked. The woman looked down at him. "Now, the galaxy will come looking for her." And with that, the chamber rumbled. In the distance, a signal had been triggered. One not heard in centuries. A bloodline lost had just been found. Memories in the firelight. The fire crackled softly in the old chamber, casting long, dancing shadows across the ancient walls. Rylan sat near it, arms resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the child who now slept wrapped in a thick cloth beside the silent guardian beast. Outside, the storm had died, but something bigger had been awakened. Inside the underground vault, time felt like it had stopped. Rylan knew he should be trying to fix his ship, call for help, find a way out, but he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The girl, her mark, and the visions. She was not just a survivor. She was a symbol, a key, a spark from a past that refused to die. His thoughts were interrupted by movement. The beast, massive and silent, shifted its weight as the child stirred in her sleep. It watched her with glowing yellow eyes, protective, patient, like a living statue forged from war and memory. Rylan turned when he heard soft footsteps. The silver-eyed woman from before stepped into the chamber again, her face calm but unreadable. "She dreams," the woman said. "She's just a child," Rylan replied, his voice low. "She shouldn't have to carry all this." The woman nodded, slowly. "Yet she does, because we failed to protect what she was born to be." She sat near the fire, not close enough to share its warmth, but close enough for her face to be lit. Rylan hesitated, then asked, "Who are you?" "I was her mother's shield," she said. Her voice, her knife in the dark. "But in the end, I was not enough." Rylan looked down at the sleeping child. "What happened?" The woman reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small device. With a soft touch, she placed it near the fire. It projected a slow-burning image in the smoke, flickering like an old memory. A city, alive, alien, yet beautiful. Floating, towers, glowing rivers, bridges of light. This was Valexia, she said, a world of peace, ruled by the Lumen bloodline. Her mother, Queen Cyrell, ruled with balance, power and kindness in equal parts. Rylan watched the image. "What went wrong?" The woman's face hardened. "Ambition, envy, betrayal." The smoke shifted. The towers cracked. Flames rose. Shadowy figures in dark armor marched through the streets. People fled. Ships exploded in the skies above. "They called themselves the Hollow Suns," she said. "Believers in blood purity. They wanted the Lumen line erased. The Queen hid her child, this child, in a sleeper pod. Launched it far beyond their reach." Rylan swallowed. "And she landed here?" "No," the woman said. "She was never meant to. Her pod was damaged mid-flight. It drifted off course, barely found its way to Kairos. No one knew she survived. Until now. Rylan ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. So, the galaxy thinks she's dead? Yes. And some will want her to stay that way. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. The beast let out a soft, rumbling breath. Why did that thing bow to her? Rylan asked, nodding toward the beast. It's called a thornback, she replied. A royal guardian beast. Their kind was bred not just to fight, but to feel, to sense the blood of the royal family. It knelt because she carries the blood of queens. Rylan exhaled slowly. So now what? We just wait here? The woman looked at him with a new sharpness. No. We move. Others will come. Some to protect her, some to kill her. But she cannot stay hidden anymore. Just then the chamber lights flickered. Rylan stood. What was that? A sound followed. Ping, 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 not from above, below. The woman's face tensed. Someone is trying to access the vault's lower chambers. Rylan grabbed a metal rod. Friends of yours? She shook her head. We were the only ones. Who knew this place existed? The beast growled. Low, steady, dangerous. The girl woke up, sitting up quickly, eyes wide. The mark on her chest shimmered. Then they all heard it. A voice. Artificial. Echoing through the walls in a cold, robotic tone. Biosignal confirmed. Lumen air detected. Extraction protocol engaged. What the hell is that? Rylan asked. The woman stood fast. Automated warforged machines. Old tech. Built to protect the vault. Protect it from what? From everyone. Rylan turned to the girl. She clung to his side, her hand wrapping around his arm. He could feel her trembling. Can you shut them down? He asked. The woman looked unsure. Only if the air commands it. He knelt beside the child, looking her in the eye. Hey, listen to me. I know you're scared, but you're not alone, okay? You're strong, you're chosen. Her eyes shimmered with light, and then she stood, small but unshaken. She raised her palm, and the mark on her chest blazed. Suddenly the walls responded. The machines approaching from below froze mid-step, then powered down. Rylan let out a breath. Well, that worked. The woman gave a small, rare smile. She's waking up. But far above them, in the cold reaches of space, a signal had gone out. It had been silent for 10 years. Now it screamed, and others were listening. The chase through ice and sky the moment the vault quieted. A new sound filled the chamber, a soft hum. But this time, it wasn't from the machines. It came from above. A distant vibration through the ice, growing louder every second. Rylan felt it in his chest first. A low thrum, a warning. The silver-eyed woman turned sharply. They've found her. Who? Rylan asked, heart pounding. Not just anyone, she said darkly. Hunters, blood trackers, bred to detect the lumen mark and erase it. The girl stood between them, silent, clutching Rylan's hand tightly. The glowing mark on her chest had dimmed after shutting down the machines, but something in her eyes told him she already knew what was coming. We have to move, the woman said. Move where? The ship's busted, Rylan replied, grabbing his pack and stuffing what little supplies he had inside. There's an old emergency skiff, she said. Deep in the mines, past the lower tunnels. If it still works, it can get us off this rock. Rylan nodded. Then let's run. They hurried out of the chamber, the massive guardian beast walking beside them like a silent shadow. Its claws made heavy sounds on the stone floor, and it kept glancing up, like it could sense what hunted them. As they ran deeper into the vault, old lights flickered awake around them, cold, blue, and ancient. Rylan noticed the girl began to look stronger, like her very steps were lighting the path ahead. Then a voice echoed through the halls. Sharp, cruel. Return the child, and you will be spared. Rylan spun, They're already inside. They're using war echoes, the woman said. They can send their voices through air and metal. The beast growled low. Suddenly, crash. The ceiling behind them shattered, and 3 figures dropped into the hallway. Not fully machine, not fully alive. They wore black armor fused with alien tech, long limbs and red glowing visors. Their faces were covered. Their weapons were built into their arms. "Run!" Rylan yelled, pulling the girl close. They sprinted down the tunnels, the beast turning and charging toward the intruders to slow them down. Gunfire rang out. Energy. Bolts lit the tunnel in flashes of orange and red. The girl stumbled once. Rylan caught her without stopping. "Come on, little star. Stay with me." They reached the mine level. Old rails, rusted pipes, shattered cargo crates. "There," the woman shouted, pointing to a steel bay at the end of the corridor. The door was marked with ancient lumen symbols and heavy locks. The girl ran forward. Her palm touched the door. It melted open. Inside, a sleek escape skiff lay dormant. It was dust-covered but intact. Old lumen tech, streamlined, powerful, and built to last. "Get in," the woman called, sliding into the pilot seat. Rylan strapped the girl in. She looked pale but focused. Her eyes locked on him like she didn't want to blink. The engines hummed to life. Behind them, the sound of metal footsteps returned. The beast appeared at the bay's entrance, wounded and limping, but still alive. It blocked the door with its body, refusing to let the hunters pass. "Go," Rylan whispered. A final roar shook the chamber, and then the skiff shot into the tunnel. Outside, the world was white again. But this time, it wasn't snow. It was ships, small, fast hunter crafts, scanning the skies, searching for the skiff. "Hold on," the woman shouted, pulling the skiff up into the air through a frozen shaft. The wind roared. The engines strained. They burst through the ice ceiling and into open sky. Immediately they were spotted. Enemy ships turned, wings slicing through the clouds like knives. "They're faster than us," Rylan shouted. "But not smarter," the woman said with fire in her voice. She dropped the skiff low, through icy valleys, sharp ridges, and jagged rocks. Lasers burned past them, scorching the air. "Can this thing jump to orbit?" Rylan asked. "Not yet," she said. "We need altitude." A hunter ship locked on from behind, targeting them with a pulse beam. Boom! The rear engine took a hit. The skiff spiraled. The girl screamed. Her hands reached for Rylan. He unstrapped and shielded her with his body. They smashed through a frozen ridge, metal screaming against stone. But somehow, the ship held together. Stabilizing, the woman gritted her teeth. "I need a boost from the mark." She looked at the child. The girl's hands were trembling. Tears streaked her cheeks. The mark on her chest flickered weakly. "You have to focus," Rylan said gently. "You did it before. You can do it again." She shook her head, afraid. "Please," he whispered, "we believe in you." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then the mark exploded with light. The controls surged. The engines screamed back to life. The skiff blasted upward into the clouds, bursting through the storm. The hunters tried to follow, but the shockwave knocked them off course. "Orbit achieved," the woman said. "Ready for jump." "Jump where?" Rylan asked, still holding the child. "Anywhere far from here," she said. "But first, we need to find the one who can protect her truth." Rylan looked at the girl. Her head rested against his chest. Now, her breath calm, steady. Outside, Kairos 7 shrank behind them, and far across the stars, something old had stirred. A throne without a queen, a people without hope, a war waiting to reignite. But this time, it would all begin with a child and the human who refused to leave her behind. The truth of her blood space was quiet. Too quiet. The stolen skiff drifted silently through deep orbit, its engines cooled down, cloaked, hiding in the shadow of a dead moon. Inside, the cabin glowed faintly with blue emergency lights. Frost collected on the windows. Rylan sat with the girl wrapped in a thick thermal blanket beside him. She was sleeping again. Her small hand curled against his arm. the faint pulse of her glowing mark still visible beneath her collar. The silence gave Rylan too much time to think. About her. About what she was. About what he had become just by touching her. "I used to deliver food and fuel," he muttered. Now I'm dodging warships and raising alien royalty." The woman, still cold and unreadable, was at the console. Her name, finally revealed, was Kara. Once a shadow warrior of the Lumen court, now the last surviving protector. "We need to reach Haven's End," she said without turning. "What's that?" Rylan asked. "An ancient sanctuary. Secret. Hidden even from the stars. Only the Bloodmark can open it. And only there can we learn the full truth." Rylan frowned. "Truth? About what?" Kara finally looked up. "About her origin. And yours." He blinked. "Mine? What do I have to do with any of this?" Kara stared at him for a long moment. "You touched her. And she awakened. No one else could. The Mark chose you, human. It was just a reflex," he said. "She was dying. I gave her warmth." Kara's voice dropped lower. "Many gave her warmth before. Doctors, scavengers, smugglers. But the Mark never lit. Not once. Until you." Rylan didn't know how to respond. He looked down at the girl, at the gentle glow on her chest, and felt a strange warmth rise in him. Not fear, not duty, connection. "How far is this sanctuary?" he asked finally. "Far enough," Kyra said. "And dangerous." They activated the jump drive. The skiff trembled as stars warped and bent. Outside then, blackness. They arrived in a dead sector of space. No suns, no planets, just cold dark. And a single floating station built into the bones of an ancient asteroid. As they approached, the girl stirred, her eyes opened slowly. Her fingers gripped the console, and the sanctuary came to life. Old lights lit across its hull, golden, warm, ancient. Symbols appeared in the void, drawn in stardust. "She's calling it," Kara whispered. "It remembers her." They docked in silence. Inside, the halls were filled with carvings in crystal, not metal, not wires. The walls hummed with energy, alive and ancient. As they walked, the girl led them without hesitation to a chamber shaped like a star. At its center, a massive ring floated above the floor, filled with swirling light. "What is this place?" Rylan asked. "The memory core," Kara said. "Only blood can unlock its truth." The girl stepped forward. Her mark glowed brighter than ever. She touched the ring, and everything changed. The air became heavy. The light filled with sound. Vision spilled out, like dreams given form. And this time Rylan saw more than he ever expected. A laboratory, cryotubes, humans, and Lumen. Not enemies. Partners. They worked together, building something forbidden. Child, a hybrid, half human, half Lumen, the first of her kind. The girl. "No," Rylan whispered. "She's not just royalty, she's both." Kara stood in silence, stunned. The vision continued. The queen, Sorel, stood with a man. A human. Tall. Kind eyes. He held the baby. He kissed the queen's hand. Then, alarms, betrayal, escape. The queen placed the child in a pod, and the human man turned to face the attackers. He was the last thing she saw before the pod closed. "That man," Rylan said, he looks like me." Kara turned sharply. "Not just looks." "What are you saying?" She stepped closer. "You are his descendant." Rylan felt his knees weaken. "That's impossible. Your blood carries a fragment of Lumen. Code. Enough for the Mark to respond. Enough for her to trust you before she even knew you." He backed away, heart racing. "She didn't just survive," he said. "She came back to find me?" Kara nodded. "You are her only living family, her guardian by blood. The girl turned to him now slowly, tears in her eyes, and for the first time she spoke in clear English. "Father," the word shattered him. He fell to his knees, arms open. She ran into them without hesitation, and in that embrace, the sanctuary sealed around them, like the stars themselves recognized the bond. But even as they held each other, far across the galaxy, others had seen the same signal. The bloodline was alive. The air had awakened, and war was no longer a question. It was a promise. The last stand and the new beginning, the sanctuary trembled, not from within, but from what was coming. From the edge of the dead sector, ships began to arrive, black as night, sharp as blades, moving in perfect silence. The hollow suns had heard the signal. The bloodline was no longer lost, and they had come to end it for good. Inside the glowing halls of the ancient sanctuary, Ryland stood in silence. The child pressed close to his chest. She had just called him father, and somewhere deep in his soul he had felt the truth of it. He wasn't her father by birth, but by bloodline, by choice, by bond. Kara paced by the old command altar, scanning the system. Her eyes were sharp, voice tight. "There are more than 30 enemy ships, destroyers, hunters, even a dreadnought." Ryland looked at the child. "We have nowhere to run." "We don't run," Kara said. "Not anymore." Lights around. The sanctuary pulsed in rhythm to the girl's heartbeat. The ancient systems, powered by her presence, began waking fully. Walls shifted. Control panels slid open. A massive energy core began to hum beneath the floors. "What is this place?" Ryland asked. Kara turned. "This isn't just a sanctuary. It's a royal defense cradle, the last weapon of the Lumen Empire." "A weapon?" Ryland echoed. Kara nodded. "Not to destroy, to defend. It was built to protect the heir, and her chosen." The child stepped forward now, her face calm, her silver eyes glowing. She raised her hand, and the mark on her chest burned bright gold. The sanctuary responded. Energy shields flared around the asteroid. Drones lifted from hidden chambers. Thousands of lights blinked on across the surface. The girl didn't look scared anymore. She looked ready. But outside, the hollow suns weren't waiting. They began to fire. The first blasts hit the shield. The asteroid shook but held. Inside, Ryland turned to Kara. "How long can this place survive?" "Long enough," she said. "If we fight back." "We?" Kara's eyes met his. "She needs a voice. Someone who believes in her, not just protects her. Someone who stands by her side." Ryland took a breath, then nodded. "Then let's show them what it means to fight for something real." He turned to the child, knelt in front of her. "You're not just someone important," he said gently. "You're someone worth everything, and I'll stand with you always." Her eyes welled with light. Then the walls shook again. One of the ships had breached the outer layer. Enemy soldiers boarded. The Guardians, ancient, four-armed sentinels made of crystal and steel, awoke to fight them. Blaster fire echoed through the stone corridors. Kara handed Ryland a weapon. "Ready?" He took it with shaking hands. "Not really." "Good," she said. "Means you're sane." Together they defended the halls. Kara fought like a storm, silent, fast, precise. Ryland protected the child, firing at anything that moved toward her. But they were losing ground. More and more enemies poured in. Then, the girl raised both her hands. A soft tone filled the sanctuary. And something ancient answered. The throne, it rose from the ground like a blooming flower of crystal and light. The girl stepped onto it unafraid. Her feet barely touched it. And still, it carried her upward. Enemy soldiers froze. The light blinded them. Then came the voice. Hers. But magnified. Echoing. Across the galaxy. "I am no longer hidden. I am not weak. I am Lumen blood. And I choose to live." Every ship paused. Even the dreadnought stopped firing. On one of the bridges, a hollow sun's commander dropped his weapon. "She awakened the throne," he whispered. "Impossible." Then came the final blow, not of fire, not of war, but of choice. The girl, floating above the sanctuary, reached out her hand, not in attack, but in peace. A message to the stars, a call for unity, a light that burned brighter than war. And slowly, the fleet turned. Some ran, some bowed, some simply disappeared. The battle was over, not with blood, but with hope. Inside, Rylan ran to the girl as she floated back down. She collapsed into his arms, tired, shaking, but smiling. "You did it," he whispered. "You changed everything." Kara walked up beside them. "No, you both did." From that day forward, the galaxy changed. The Lumen bloodline lived. A child once abandoned in the cold had become a beacon, and the man who had only meant to fix a broken transmitter had become her protector, her guide, her father. Together, they began to build something new, not an empire, not a throne, a home.